Hello, everybody. And on behalf of the British Sundial Society, happy World Sundial Day from us. And I'm now going to share my screen, if I can. Right, well, the early days when you wrote your first computer program, textbook said, print out Hello World. At the time, I thought this was a very silly thing to do, and I could never see if it would ever be any point in it. But maybe just this occasion, saying Hello World is a good idea. But it's two quite different words I want to use as my theme, and these are Sundial evangelism. It's wonderful that there are so many Sundial societies around the world, but very important thing every Sundial society should do is to look after its future. Very important to bring in new people really all the time to take the place of those of us who are fading away. The world number one Sundial evangelist in my book is Evan Boxer Cook, from whom you're going to hear later. By comparison, I am a fairly feeble disciple, but I can show you how I have been attempting to persuade people to take an interest in sundials where I live, and that is simply by taking people on guided sundial tours around Cambridge, England, my hometown, where we have many, many, many sundials to choose from. And with a group that has never really thought about sundials before, I like to start with something simple, a horizontal sundial, perhaps something like this. You can see the group standing round. This is a classic English sundial, tiny horizontal sundial on a nice stone pedestal in a garden. You've probably worked out that this is in the garden of a Cambridge college, which is certainly the case. And if you count the man-woman sex ratio of the people standing around, you'll deduce correctly that this is a women's college, Newnham College in Cambridge. And this sundial was set up in 1900 in memory of a student who had sadly died very young. She died in 1898. But it is quite a nice little sundial. And importantly, I can ask people to have a good look at it and point out the three major components of most ordinary sundials: a gnomon, a shadow, and a dial. And I say, come up and have a look where the shadow falls on the dial, and you can tell the time, in this case, about 2:30. These people are all, of course, looking at a camera, but if they just looked up a tiny little bit, they would see about 40 meters away this column, which is another memorial in the college. This dates from 1914 and commemorates the second head of the college, Eleanor Sidgwick, who was a noted physicist in her day. This is the second half of the 19th century, and she worked doing research alongside Lord Rayleigh, so quite a distinguished person in her own right. There are four sundials on the top of this column, so I can now introduce vertical sundials and point out, for example, that the one on the left is direct south facing with the gnomon pointing downwards, and the one on the right is direct north facing with the sundial with the gnomon pointing upwards. And importantly, these gnomons are parallel, not just to each other, but to the Earth's axis. So we're gradually getting a little bit more complicated. We now walk to the end of the garden, and there's another building there in the college with a sundial on it. Here it is, Margaret Stanier, it says, yet another memorial in the college. And Margaret Stanier was important, not just as a science fellow of the college, but also because for quite a long time, she was editor of the British Sundial Society quarterly journal, the Bulletin. And when she died, the college asked me to design a memorial sundial. And this is what I came up with. I did the calculations, and the slate was cut by a noted Swedish stonecutter, Annika Peterson. And this is noting that Margaret was keen on unequal hour sundials. I thought I'll produce a modern unequal hour sundial, which is gnomon driven. How can this possibly work? Well, to beginners, I simply say all this does is divide the daylight period into 12 equal parts. And so when the shadow lands on the 6 at the bottom, this in ordinary sundials is number 12, midday. Well, here it means we are 6/12 of the way through the daylight period. The shadow at the moment is actually halfway between 7 and 8. So we are 7.5 twelfths through the daylight period. How does this work? Well, you can see quite quickly that the gnomon is not polar oriented, but it is in a vertical north-south plane, the meridian plane. And this gnomon is inclined to the horizontal by a mere 9 degrees, just under 9 degrees, which turns out to be a critical angle. And having chosen that angle, I can then calculate for each of the 11 hour lines that are shown where the shadow will fall on every day of the year. And it judders around a bit. It's not constant. For each hour line, there is a little spread in the position of the shadow. But at this critical value, the spreads, its variability is reduced to a minimum. Now, if you look at 6, that's when the sun is due south, and there is no error there any day of the year. The sun always falls on 6 hours after sunrise. When it comes to 3 and 9, these are the quarter marks, halfway through the morning, halfway through the afternoon. Then the error is never more than 1 minute. And for 4, 5, 7, and 9, well, it can be 2 or 3 minutes, but not much worse than that. 1, 2, and 11, 12. 1, 2, and 10, 11. Well, it's not so good. And for the horizon lines, well, I've missed them out because this absolutely doesn't tell us the horizon line. And so instead, I've got these 2 wavy lines of the sun. On the left, where the horizon line should be, the wavy line ends with an upward point, time for the sun to get up. On the right-hand side, the wavy line ends with a downward point, time for the sun to go down. Well, we then metaphorically look over the garden fence to the college next door, which is Selwyn College, just a 1-2 minute walk from where we're looking now. And at last we see a sundial, which is not a memorial. This, in fact, commemorates a benefaction, a donation to the college. And the condition of this donation was that a percentage should be spent on a sundial. And the college asked me to come up with an appropriate design. In this case, the inscription tells us a little bit about the benefactor in Latin, a favorite language in Cambridge, collegio suo, to his college, lactarius, you know about lactation, the milkman Eberocensis of Yorkshire, Medano Dedit, gave me as a gift. Keen-eyed people will see there's another inscription in the sunburst at the top, a Karangnofi in Greek, season opportunity. Well, this tells Italian and hours and Babylonian hours, and 19, under the 19, you can see a little splodge, that's the shadow of a nodus. It's 19 hours, Italian hours, and you have to work out quite carefully. It's about 11.5 hours Babylonian time. And the average of those times, average of 19 and 11.5, well, that gives us 30.5 if we add them together, divide by 2, we get 15.25, which translates into 15:15. 3:15 in the afternoon is the time in ordinary common hours. And that ends my little tour of the Cambridge sundials. And with a little bit of luck, 1 or 2 people will by this stage have become so enthusiastic that they will join the British Sundial Society.
Yeah.
Over to you, Martins.
Yeah. Thank you. It was perfect timing. We have possibly time for one very brief question, if there is any. Nothing has been posted. There's like a thumbs up
that's good.
comment.
Another one of those.
Okay. Well, it seems that there are no questions. Thank you very much, Frank.
Thank you, Martins. And thank you to Martinez too.